Hello, I'm Khari Douglas, the host of the Computing Community Consortium's Catalyzing Computing podcast, and I'll be interviewing Peter Mirski as part of the Traversing Separation with the Heidelberg Laureate Forum Foundation. Peter holds a chair in management and IT at the Management Center Innsbruck. He is the director of the academic study programs, management communication and IT, as well as digital business and software engineering online. So how are you doing today, Peter?
Well, hi, Gary. Thanks for having me. It's very, very exciting to give that interview.
So could you tell me a little bit about yourself? What is your background and what is MCI?
Well, just in a nutshell, starting with MCI. MCI is actually a spin-off from the University of Innsbruck. Our University of Innsbruck has an age of 350 years, and 25 years ago, a small group of people were invited to create a spin-off in order to create the University of Tomorrow. And that's the last 25 years of my personal career. I've studied at the university in the field of business informatics. And as a very small group of students, we started to create MCI as an institution with the vision of creating something very special, something which focuses on more agile structures in universities, and perhaps an institution which would like to make the difference in terms of focusing on enhancing the careers of our students. That will be in a nutshell what my background is. Educational-wise, you see I'm heading the Department of Management, Communication and Computer Science, so this is for sure also my background, also my professional background. I've been in IT industry, mainly researching in these three fields, and I'm very happy that I can say that our institution, when we started 25 years ago, had 0 students. Now we have almost 4,000 students. A very broad international network with a lot of partner universities and a very strong also business network. So this is, in a nutshell, my background. Still totally motivated to run my department.
So what is the connection between MCI and the Heidelberg Laureate Forum Foundation?
Well, actually, it's a great honor to have this connection, to have this bridge from MCI to the Laureate Forum. In the last years, we were invited to create the Friday afternoon session that was called Scientific Interaction. And we were invited just to work with alumni, with students, with participants on their career paths. That was the core idea. At the end of the week, just focusing on your strengths, on your personal and individual career plans. And I think these workshops were successful. We all enjoyed these workshops, and we thought we might push the ball a little bit further and start a project out of that. And actually, this is what we did last year, saying, okay, we could even institutionalize this workshop series, actually, and to base that also on scientific research on career paths for young scientists in the network, in the community of the Laureate Forum.
So is that program going on now, currently?
Yeah. It's we started this year. It was a very special year, but yes, we are really, I would say, very, very committed to the project. We are in the first year, also focusing mainly on women's career in tech. On the one hand, in the field of science, and the other hand, in the field of business careers. We're just identifying successful pathways. We're checking what the community could support all these alumni and which insights we could share.
Okay. So the focus of this interview is kind of on digital learning. So has that program been affected by the pandemic? How are you guys handling that?
Well, this is actually a question which is for sure to be answered by yes. Everybody on Earth, I would say, is affected by this pandemic, and also we with our universities here in Austria are sure affected as well. In my department, mentioned computer science, the computer science part has always been an online program. So if you would ask me if the didactical approach for an online program did change, I would say to a minor stage. But in the management and communication sciences, we also have on-premise programs in my department, and here for sure, from one day to another, we had to switch the whole program into the digital world. And that was for sure a huge challenge for lecturers, professors, scientists, and also for our students for sure, and the administration as well. The university is, I would say, an ecosystem where all these three parts really need to understand the needs of each other in order to create a wonderful degree program, a good study experience. Yeah.
So what would you say are the main components of digital learning? Like, does that include things other than just being on Zoom? I assume it does.
Well, I assume that we don't have the time to go through all these details and to all those didactical approaches. But in a nutshell, I would say the first and easiest thing to do if you have a didactical concept which is based on a face-to-face teaching is to switch to Zoom and more or less or a platform like Zoom, not to focus on just one solution, but there are many platforms which enable synchronous teaching. So the transfer of a face-to-face teaching into this digital setting as we are now talking is perhaps the first approach which you would use mainly if you are under time pressure. So the faculty and the students need to understand how to deal with this software solution and do more or less the same as they did before. But you will see, and I think a lot of people recognize that during the last month, this is not a very satisfying situation if you do this setting for 8 hours a day, for example, or just switching and swapping from one video conference to the next video conference, because the degree program needs interaction, it needs personal reflection, etc., etc. So there are so many things which are also occurring in a classroom, which are transferable to an online setting, but not only due to switching on your webcam. So interaction does play a very strong role, thinking about the students' workload so that it is still fair, taking the benefits from online teaching, like having strong chat rooms, strong options for individuals to contribute, for example. This is a strong plus. Integrating that into a didactical setting is I would say, the next step. I think this is what a really online design program is focused on. So a lot of learnings from both sides, I would say, in a nutshell. You could also even push the ball even further to the future, saying, well, only looking to webcam is perhaps what we do today. Maybe in future we have virtual reality in order to meet in virtual rooms and redesign our kind of old school lecture halls in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a long way to go.
So you mentioned MCI was doing some digital learning or online classes prior to the pandemic. So what do you think makes a class a good option to be taught digitally if you have the choice, obviously?
Well, actually, if you allow me to just get a step backwards, then I would say it is not only dependent on the content you're delivering. It's also very dependent on the learning situation of the student, for example. Our experience is that actually we are teaching our computer science program online. You would perhaps say this is a very hard thing to do. We are also offering degree programs in business or in social sciences. So all of these degree programs have some tasks which are quite easy to do, and others are very hard. I think a very strong trigger is the motivation of the student, saying, well, for example, a full-time employee who only has time in the evenings takes that online format and knows exactly what he or she has to do, perhaps also on the background of already made experiences. So this is a totally different situation than somebody coming from high school with no job experience, who needs much more, I would say, interaction and much more practical approaches in order to get the right understanding of the theory.
Okay.
So I would more focus on the customer to give you the answer than on the content. My experience is that more or less each and every content is possible or is eligible for creating an online experience out of it. For some things, it's a bit easier for sure, and for others, you have to think much more about it and split the lessons in smaller portions and smaller chunks. But I think the motivation of the student, that is the core driver of a good learning experience.
So, with the pandemic and a lot of people switching to digital learning, how do you think that will impact young scientists who are currently getting their degrees or in school?
That is a good question. I think for scientists, the way to interact or collaborate, for example, is much more digitalized than it has been before. So picking up this tech savviness in order to run Zoom meetings or moderate Zoom meetings. Once again, it's not only Zoom, but it's also Adobe and Microsoft and all the other software vendors who offer these solutions. Is a part of the game. I think sharing knowledge, working together is something which is hard enough if you're sharing one lab, if you're sharing one space. Even if we create really inspiring and interesting spaces for our scientists, the space alone is not the solution, right? And that is the same for the digital world. I think creating a very productive setting in a digital world is even a bit harder than in the real world. And it's much more than just having the tech savviness. So it will have an impact because we are not able to travel as we were able to travel before, to meeting up in conferences, sharing our experiences, etc. So yes, this will have an impact. It already has an impact, and I think this impact will stay a little bit longer than we hope that it might stay.
So I guess, are there other ways maybe that are less obvious that you see the pandemic accelerating digital learning trends?
Well, yes. On the one hand, what we call technology acceptance in the whole population has been fostered a lot. This is for sure. And this would have taken, I would say, 10 or 15 years to get the whole population, from school teachers to parents who needed to take care of the education of their children online. So this was a strong boost. But you are asking for, I would say, the hidden secrets, the still not so obvious points. I would say, as mentioned before, technology will go on. A virtual setting like virtual reality, teaching in these kind of digital spaces is something which we do in our lab here. but still on a research basis, is perhaps the next step. And it might be even true that this step will be, I would say, would become earlier reality than it would have become if this pandemic wouldn't have happened. Because as said before, technology acceptance is really driving the race. Online meetings are everywhere, and going back to the business part of what a lot of companies are concerned about, companies need to make a difference. Universities need to make a difference. Scientists also need to make a difference. So the question is always, who uses the right technology for the right purpose? And I think we should have a very close look not only to using these technologies, but also asking our institutions, what is the real customer benefit for it? Where can I really make a difference when I'm using or not using this or that setting? So I think the question, which setting is the appropriate one for which culture, for which situation in this pandemic, is a new know-how that hasn't been before attractive before.
Yeah.
I would say half a year ago, it was totally obvious that specific conferences were not online, but in real person settings. Now you have to think about which part may be an interesting part to deliver still in a real on-premise facility, and which part can be kind of combined with real conferences. And as you mentioned before, it's not only a web conference that is I would say, the burner of a conference, inviting somebody via a video chat. There are really a lot of options which you can use, integrate social media channels, live streamings, etc. And orchestrating that is for sure a new know-how, which is very important for the success of our, I think, scientists, because we need to exchange opinions and integrate new ideas, as well as for our teaching, as well as for our institutions, and at the end of the day, for the businesses and our society itself. So I think, yes, it has a strong impact, and we need to learn to optimize the usage of these technologies as fast as we can, because just because of the pandemic, competition out there in the world has not disappeared. It is even stronger than it has been before, right?
That's true. So you mentioned that you've been using VR some for your own uses. Do you have any recommendations as far as platforms or contexts that VR is most useful?
Well, I would say, if you allow me that, as a scientist, I would say I would prefer to give a vendor-neutral answer. Otherwise, I would need to be fair to all those vendors of software solutions.
Right.
I think a very good plan is having a detailed plan of what you want to do, what you want to deliver, what the real use is for the ones who are sharing this virtual space. I think this is something which is, it sounds so simple, but it's not that simple. And this is absolutely it's not related to special technologies. So this is an abstract answer, but forgive me that I would not like to mention specific vendors. What is an important thing, I think, also on this in this point, is that we are, when we're talking about distance learning, e-learning, or using digital formats for our universities, is for sure that you have to take care that all these platforms, the data security, the privacy of the students is a very important thing. If you just, there's the danger if you just switch from the on-premise setting to just one solution, then you might optimize the video stream, but forget about other aspects of this very personal interaction between a teacher and a student. And the next thing is that you also have to bear in mind, this is, I think, very, very important to mention, that all these platforms share data. So the interaction between the systems should be as easy as possible for the end users. If you think about grading, if you think about learning chunks, if you think about where the students, if they learn something, deliver their content, where they store this content, and where they have a proper life cycle to their content and their personal photos or personal discussion points. I think once you have just made the first step in order to use web conferences for teaching, the next step is for sure thinking about the right structure, the right concept, the right project plan for the lecture. And the third step would be integrate these solutions so that the user experience for our students is proper, is all right, and also is taking concern of all these legal regulations, for example, data privacy. I think this is also a very important point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for being here, Peter. We should probably wrap up, but any final thoughts you want to leave the viewers with?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think my final message would be stay motivated, because this is really not that easy in these times. Mainly if you're working online and teaching online for hours and hours, and this is also true for the students, so stay motivated. Don't give up, and be creative as well. I think the digital world offers a lot of really cool options, not mentioning only virtual reality settings, but there are, I would say, unlimited options and possibilities also in the virtual world. And that would be my second point. First one is stay motivated, and second one is be as creative as possible. And third one would be share your insights with your colleagues, discuss about that, and listen to your customers. That is always a very good idea. Thank you so much.
That's a good way to close. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for having me.